Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our second part of our three-part series, Leopard Solutions, honoring and celebrating Women's History Month. Today's session, we are honored to have Merle Vaughn, Managing Partner of Major Lindsey Africa. Today's session is called Level Setting the Playing Field with Your Male Counterparts. And we're honored to have you here today, Merle, and we appreciate you taking some time and sharing your insights. As always, we're also honored to have CEO and founder Leopard here, who will be moderating today's discussion. For those that don't know, my name is Phil Flora. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing. And as I mentioned, this is the second part of our three-part series, which is wrapping up next week, March 27th, as we'll have Alyssa Gershak, partner of Sidley Austin, joining us as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Laura. Laura, take it away. Thank you, everyone.
There are a lot of issues that women deal with that men don't have to deal with in the law firm setting. We became uniquely acquainted with that working with those two surveys that we did of women in big law. So we thought we would ask a real expert about what she sees in big law. Merle Vaughn is with Major Lindsey in Africa, of course, as Phil said. So she really knows. She sees a lot that's going on. She hears from her clients. She hears from law firms. And we really wanted to get her take on how women can really level that playing field, with their male counterparts in law firms, and just some things that she's learned along the way that may help women over these rough spots as they encounter them in their law firm life. So welcome, Merle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Happy spring. Today's the first full day of spring.
I know it doesn't quite feel like it, but yes, it is. Yes, it is. So just right off the bat, we thought we would ask you, just based on your experience and all the people that you have helped and talked to, what do you think the current state of gender parity is in law firms and legal departments?
Is that a trick question? Well, I could answer it very simply and say there is not parity, right? I think that, as we all know, things have gotten a little better based on the fact that, on the one hand, it's better because more women are going to law school and more women are graduating from law school. Over 50% of the women who go to of people who go to law school are women, which means at that level, at least 50% of incoming associates in law firms are women. So yay, that's a good thing. But then when we start talking about equity and parity and all that, it's, those numbers start to slip, right? So, we know that only like 50% of associates are women, but only 28% of women are partners in law firms, right? In-house does a lot better. And we can talk about that a little later, and then of those 28% of women partners, only 28% of women are partners. When you start to talk about equity partners, of the 100% of equity partners, only 23.7% of equity partners are women. So then you have to ask yourself, what's happening there? So that means that there's this pool of women partners who are in the non-equity group, right? So is there parity? No. Have things gotten better? Yes, but how much? I think that's debatable. And when we talk about law firms versus in-house, I can tell you that at least at Major Lindsey in Africa last year, we did a lot of in-house placements. 53% of those placements were women. 42% of the placements that we did were GCs. 42% of the GCs that we placed were women. So, you know, those are really good numbers. But when I just did this math here, my math is mathing here, let me see. But in terms of partners, we did a lot of partner placements. 28% of those placements were women. So those numbers are actually kind of the, you know, it's very, you know, what we've experienced in terms of our placements really goes hand in hand with what the statistics are in the law firm.
It
Wow.
does. It does. You know, we had noticed, you know, been tracking it for a good while now, that women tend to drop out of big law mid-career. And law firms are beginning to notice that too. Last year was a little atypical because everybody dropped out. There was a lot of people leaving big law last year, and very few were being hired back. But for women, it does seem to be a persistent statistic that they drop out mid-career. We also have seen that there are far fewer senior women being brought on laterally, whether it's, you know, as a counsel, as a partner, or even as a highly senior associate, just fewer women in those upper ranks, you know, being recruited. If they recruited more women laterally, you would see more of those numbers change more quickly. What do you think is the persistent barrier there preventing women from achieving parity in those more higher rungs?
So I think it's two things. One is when you talk about just women leaving the law in the mid-career, you know, in general, it's a lot of it is they're going in-house, right? I mean, some people are just leaving altogether because they're having families, but I don't think that's a big part of it. I think a lot of them are going in-house. They're, you know, they're going in-house with their clients. They're going in the house, and they have expertise, and they know the clients, and the clients are getting a real value add by bringing them, you know, basically taking them from the law firm and bringing them in house. When it comes to, and a lot of the people who want to leave their firms, instead of looking for new firms, they're looking for in-house opportunities. And, you know, I'll say this to the group, the grass is not always greener. So just understand that, be careful what you wish for. But in terms of lateral partners, you know, the issue there is what, you know, what are you bringing with you, right? So clearly you're bringing your expertise. That's the first thing, your expertise, your work ethic, you know, and all that, right? That there's, you know, there's no question about women having that. You know, we're as smart, we're as capable, we're probably more hardworking, and usually, with the exception of me, more humble, right? But what about portable business? Right.
Yeah.
So what firms look at is they look at what are you bringing in terms of portable business? Do you have portable business? Some firms say we don't need you to have a lot of portable business. We recognize that maybe you haven't been in a position at your current firm to amass portable business. What are your relationships like? You know, do you have, are there clients where you're not getting origination credit because you're at a firm that isn't giving you that, but the clients are reaching out to you directly? That's potential business, right? And then, you know, what kind of hours? A lot, it depends on the firm. What do they measure? Do they measure working attorney hours? You know, what do they value? Some firms really value the number of hours you work on matters in addition to the revenue that you're bringing in. And then, so it's relationship based, it's business based, um, and it's based on what your expertise is, what your niche is. If you have a niche that is really, in high demand, and you don't have any business, but you have an expertise, you can do well laterally. So, there are a lot of variables. There's not just one way of looking at it.
Right, right. What are some of those niche practices that are highly valuable right now?
I think one of them right now is AI.
Yeah.
You just think about what's hot right now. What are the topics that people are talking about? What are the things that people are afraid of? What might be keeping companies or boards of directors? What is keeping people up at night who hire lawyers? And one of them, now I think the hottest topic is AI. Obviously privacy is a big topic. It's very cyclical. Sometimes it's corporate, sometimes, but when it's not corporate, it's usually bankruptcy. So you can kind of identify these things. Is it IP? IP is a big issue, especially when you're talking about AI. So if you're looking at what's going on in the world, you can kind of see what the trends are.
Okay. And traditionally, or so we hear, and I should have run this search before we got on here, but the thinking has always been you're going to find a lot of women in softer practices like labor and employment, and that has its moments of being hot. It sort of comes in and out, but sometimes it's the practices that they're into that sort of limit their mobility options, correct?
Absolutely. And labor and employment is a good example of that, because you're always going to have labor and employment needs, right? During the pandemic, that we're still in, but less so now. Um, Labor and employment was huge,
Yeah.
right? Work from home, all these things. How do you deal with employees? Can you test them? Can you make them come in? So it was huge. The issue with labor and employment is that the rates are low. So here we come back to the money issue, right? The rates are low. When the rates are low, you don't bill as much. You don't have as much to bring. There are also a lot of the higher ranked law firms have gotten out of labor and employment because it's become a commoditized area of practice, and clients don't want to pay high billable hours. They'll pay high bills for bet the company suits, or cases, but for the most part, it's commoditized. And so that's what you have to be thinking about. Where do you want to be on the food chain at a law firm?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. Now, in your experience, have you ever encountered a situation where gender bias really affected the decision making at the firm when it came down to candidate selection? Have you seen that bias raise its head? And if you did, how did you handle it?
I can't really remember a time where that I can specifically point to where it was just obvious
Sure.
that, yeah, like, we're gonna pick this man over this woman, or we're gonna pick this non-person, white person over this person of color. I can't say. I think most most lawyers are a little bit more savvy than that. I do get a lot of complaint, stories. I hear a lot of stories from candidates that say that they're being treated differently at their current firm,
Mhm.
right? Um, But I mean, I do think that I've experienced times where firms have questioned what the candidate says they can bring in a different way um from a male candidate. So, like it's not quite as believable that this person has 8 million if they're a woman as compared to if they're a man. So that kind of, kind of bias, it kind of creeps in that way. I mean, the other difference, and this is not quite what you're asking, but it's like, who do they have people meet, right, in the process? So if they're having candidates meet all men, um and or no people of color, somebody to make the woman feel like this is going to be a place that is, a
Welcome.
culture that is going to be welcoming. That's
Yeah.
one way of maybe of kind of signaling that you're going to be treated differently if you come here.
Oh, that's interesting. So when they're coming in and interviewing, all they see are men. There's no women talking with them.
Right.
Does it make a difference to candidates? Like, do you let them know how many women are at the firm, or how many women partners are at the firm, so they know they can see that there is little or a lot of opportunity there for them?
You know what? I asked them what's important to them because I'm not going to assume that it's important to them. You know, as we were saying earlier, women are not a monolith, right? Um, and not all women want, are worried about that. Um, but I do have women and candidates of color, even, men. I've had men ask me how many partners of color are there? How many, I don't care what gender they are. I want to talk to them, you
Yeah.
know. And so you can tell which candidates are concerned about it because they'll ask. I don't assume that they're concerned. I ask them what matters to you.
But they honestly might not even think about it. I would want to know, is there one female partner, or are there 30 female partners? Because because I'm a data person, and that would just
Right,
mean
right.
there's more opportunity for me there. So it just kind of makes sense. And thank you, Jennifer Gilman. You brought up a really, really good point. And I want to hear how you deal with this, Merle. Women always underestimate their abilities. They underestimate what they can bring to the table. They're very conservative when they give themselves marks. While, of course, men, total opposite. I'm going to be the best there ever was. I'm going to bring you $100 million. It's all gravy. It's all good. And then when they look at the list of requirements for a job, men will say, I can do it all. And women will say, oh, I don't know, I'm sort of familiar with that, but I'm not this. So they really take themselves down a few notches. What sort of advice, or how do you pump those women up about what they do and help them to understand that there is a big difference in how they view their work and how those competing male colleagues view theirs?
Well, you just answered the question. um, I you're right. I mean, that is an issue. And a friend of mine said to me yesterday, we should, all women should be as confident as the most mediocre successful man, right? Um, and that's just, it's
Sorry,
just,
Phil. That was pretty
but
fun.
Phil's not mediocre.
Yeah. You guys are too kind.
um but it's true, and women have a tendency to undervalue what they bring to the table, want, and it's just not just women, it's people of color, under represented folks, tend to think that it's better to under promise and over deliver. And I'm here to tell everybody who's listening, if there's anybody who's listening, that that is not a good strategy. It is not the thing to do. Now, you don't want to, you don't want to be true, right? You want but you don't want to undervalue, because first of all, if you undersell yourself, you're probably not going to get in the first place, right? If you undersell and you do get in, then you set the expectations for you are really low, and how you start out. My mother used to say, "How you start out is how you want to finish." Right? So you want to come in confident. You want to come in, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. So, what I tell people, and here's part of the issue too, is that so many women are not getting credit for what they bring in. There are a lot of women are cross-selling work, because the relationships that they have are not necessarily in their practice, their area of practice, right? So they can bring in this work that's going to some other partner, is being worked on by somebody else. And so you're not getting that origination credit. So when you fill out that LPQ, you're not including that. Well, you need to include that. If you are getting credit for 5 million, but you're bringing in another 2 million or 1 million, or whatever it is, 500,000 for other practice areas, you need to take credit for that, because there are firms who will give you credit for that, and that's how they're going to determine how you're going to get compensated. Right? So when you undervalue what you're bringing in and what your potential is and who your relationships are, you're setting yourself up to be underpaid. And that's the biggest complaint that I get from female partners, is that they're not being paid equitably with their male counterparts.
Wow. Wow. Boy, that is a really, really good point. And just to draw that out just a little bit more, how do you think women can better negotiate for themselves? We've talked about salary, right? Put everything on the table, bring everything you've got to the table. Feel as good about yourself as your male counterparts. But in trying to go for promotion, or trying to be seen, or trying to get on a high profile case, I mean, what can women do to help themselves get a leg up in those situations?
Well, I think you have to toot your own horn, right? You cannot sit.
Very hard for them to do.
Right. It's
Yeah.
hard, but you got to get over it, right? If this is, or just be fine with what you're given. I mean, nobody is going to just give you anything, right? You have to even help. You have to ask for help if you want help or you need help. If you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. And the thing that's interesting to me about law firms, if you think about what's the difference between how men are able to succeed, and but women aren't. It's not because they're smarter, it's not because they're more capable, it's because somebody is willing to help them. Right? Any successful person who tells you they're successful and they haven't had any help is delusional. Right? So who's going to help you? And you have to go out and find your people, find your person, find that person who is going to help you. And help, that's why, when people talk about affirmative action, this is not what we're here for, but that's why, that's just, it's unbelievable that people think that affirmative action hasn't helped everyone. It has. It's just 2 words. Those are 2 words, affirmative action. That just means help, which means everybody has gotten it. Everybody gets it. And you have to be willing to ask for it and accept it if you want to be successful.
The very, very true words. You rarely get anything in this life without asking for it, without, hey, me in the back of the class here. Yeah, pick me.
Here I am. And, in situations where people are undervaluing you, underappreciating you, minimizing what you do, you have to say, wait a minute, I said that first. I did this. I brought that in. You have to be willing to speak up for yourself, because nobody else is necessarily going to do it for you. Hopefully you have a sponsor or an ally who is going to say things about you in a room where you're not there that's positive. But when you're in the room, you have to speak up for yourself.
If you undervalue yourself, so will everyone else.
Exactly.
Well, wonderful advice. Thank you so much. I wish I'd been writing all these taglines down, because you said some really great stuff. So we're gonna get the transcript, and I'm gonna have some new taglines to use. That was really, really great.
I have one more tagline for you, and this is what I say to all clients, to law firms that come to me and say, I want more women, I want more of this, I want more of that. We're failing here or there. My question for that firm is, what are you willing to do differently to get a different result? Because if you keep doing things the same way over and over and over again and expect to get a different result, we all know what that is.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And this is a perfect time to mention, we have just completed a survey with Major Lindsey Africa, of Gen Z people working in big law, what they want and what they're looking for. And let me tell you, what you're willing to change is going to be on the table for all of these law firms, because it cannot stay the status quo and survive. So, yeah.
And a plug on that, we're going to be announcing the results of that at the upcoming NALP conference in Boston with Major Lindsey. So we're excited about that.
We're hosting a breakfast, so come join us, have some eggs, and get some great information.
Yep. And we're also doing a survey right now, which I'm going to drop the link into the chat. We're surveying diverse attorneys at law firms to gather their feedback and
Yeah. There's going to be some eye-popping results from that survey. So everybody stay tuned. It's as jaw-dropping in many respects as the women's surveys that we did. So
unfortunately, right?
Unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately. One day, maybe we'll bring in all the good news. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, just stay positive. Stay positive. Speak up for yourself. And find joy. You can find joy wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Don't let anyone or anything take your joy.
There you go. And that is the perfect circle to our previous webinar. So if you're watching this series, I think the through line is going to be finding your joy. So I hope everyone finds their joy today in this beautiful first day of spring. Thank you so much for joining us. Merle, thank you so much for being a part of this, and thank you for all of your great advice. Thanks so much for
having me.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.